I thought it was the wind knocking something loose, maybe the wreath I hadn't bothered to hang. But when I opened the door, Naomi was standing there. Her coat was open hair, damp at the ends. She looked like she'd been crying, though she was trying not to. In her hands was a plain white envelope, bent slightly at one corner, like she'd been holding it too long. "I didn't decorate this year, Mom," she said softly. I didn't want to pretend anymore. I didn't say anything right away. I just looked at her, taking in the boots with salt stains, the hands that used to reach for mine when crossing the street. She looked older, thinner, worn. It had been 6 years, 6 Christmases, 6 quiet dinners, 6 Decembers where I put up the tree anyway, just in case, where I baked the cookies she used to love, where I waited until midnight, thinking maybe the doorbell would ring. The last time we spoke on Christmas, she was rushing through an airport. Bad signal. Something about her phone dying. Then the call dropped, and she didn't call back. Now here she was. No suitcase, no overnight bag, no wrapped box with a ribbon. Just that envelope in her hand, and a silence so heavy I could feel it settling into my doorway. "May I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. She walked in like she wasn't sure if she belonged anymore. She didn't look around or take off her shoes. She just stood there. I closed the door behind her and noticed that her fingers still wrapped around the envelope were trembling slightly. I nodded toward the kitchen. The kettle's still warm. She didn't smile, just followed me in quiet as the snow starting to fall outside. We didn't speak as I poured the tea. She sat finally and placed the envelope on the table between us, deliberate, like it meant something. Then she looked up and said, "I've been trying, Mom. I know it doesn't look like it, but I have." I didn't reach for the envelope. I wasn't ready. Not yet. The house is quiet again, just like it has been for years. Naomi went to bed early. She said she had a headache. I didn't press. The envelope still sits untouched on the kitchen table, like a question neither of us has asked aloud. This house was never meant to hold only one person. Every floorboard creaks a little louder now, every cabinet door echoes too much when I close it. Gerald built this place with his own hands. The kitchen window looks out onto what used to be his tomato garden. I never had the heart to dig it up. I just let it grow wild. Since he passed, Christmas has become something I move through quietly. Not in grief anymore. Just habit. Every December I take down the same box of decorations. I place 2 mugs by the sink, just in case Naomi decides to come. I still knit a new stocking each year, though most of them sit folded in a drawer upstairs. I bake the same spiced cookies Naomi used to steal off the tray before they cooled. But she never came. The first year she sent flowers. The second, a gift card. After that, it was mostly messages, short ones, polite. "Sorry, Mom. Crazy week. We'll call soon. Flight prices are awful this time of year. I'll make it up to you, promise." Eventually, I stopped asking. 3 years ago, I deleted the message draft I used to rewrite every December 1st. I just left the porch light on, in case she changed her mind. People say time heals, but they forget to mention that time also hardens. It wears down the soft parts first. The part of me that waited by the window, the part that believed a knock on the door might mean something. This year, I didn't even put up the tree, but then I opened the door and there she was. Now the kettle's cold, the teacup's empty, and the envelope still unopened waits for morning. By morning, the house felt different. Not warmer, just occupied. The kind of shift that happens when another person's breathing settles into the walls. I moved quietly around the kitchen, setting water to boil. Naomi came in without a word, her hair loosely tied back, looking like she hadn't slept much. I made tea because it was something to do with my hands. She sat at the table, eyes drifting across the room, as if she didn't recognize it anymore. Or maybe she was trying not to look directly at anything that might make her feel something. The envelope from last night was still there. She reached for it, hesitated, then slid it toward me. "You should read it." I didn't open it right away. The paper felt stiff official. I could already tell it wasn't a holiday card or an apology written in a rush. "It's a transfer approval," she said, when I didn't move. "Portland headquarters." I finally looked at her. "When did you apply?" Her shoulders lifted, then dropped like she was letting go of a weight she'd carried too long, 2 years ago. They kept denying it. Said they needed me in San Francisco. But last month they reconsidered. I unfolded the letter. It was all corporate language I didn't understand. Titles, departments, reporting structures. But the location printed at the top was unmistakable. Portland. Just 40 minutes from here. Naomi took a breath, steady but shaky at the end. "I wanted to come home, Mom. I know it doesn't erase anything. And I know I've missed a lot. But I didn't want to keep being the daughter who only calls when she's between meetings." My throat tightened. Over the years, I had imagined dozens of reasons she might give for staying away. Excuses, explanations, maybe even resentment. But not this. Not effort I never saw. "I want to be close to you," she said quietly. "I want to be able to stop by after work. Actually show up." I folded the letter again, smoothing the crease. For the first time in years, I wasn't sure what to say. The kettle clicked off behind us, and the sound hung in the air like a new beginning waiting to be acknowledged. I didn't ask why it took her 6 years. Didn't bring up the Christmas card marked "Return to Sender" that showed up 2 winters ago. I'd kept it for a while, tucked behind the phone book I no longer used, then one morning tossed it into the fireplace and watched the edges curl inward without ever opening it. Some things I decided didn't need to be revisited. Instead, I asked quietly, "Will you stay the night?" Naomi looked at me for a moment, as if weighing something invisible. Then she nodded once, like she didn't trust herself to speak. I pulled the extra blanket from the hall closet, the one with the faint scent of eucalyptus tucked into the folds. I didn't mention that it hadn't been used since the last time Gerald's sister stayed over. I just laid it across the couch with care. While Naomi brushed her teeth, I stood at the fireplace and reached into the drawer where I kept the old stockings. Her name was stitched into the fabric in faded thread, still childlike from the year she tried embroidery in 5th grade. I'd kept it year after year, even when she stopped coming. It had moved around the house like a ghost, sometimes draped over a chair. Other times, hung in quiet defiance above the mantel. I placed it back where it used to be. Not for show, not for forgiveness, just because it belonged there. When she came out, Naomi looked at the stocking, then at me. She didn't speak, but she didn't look away either. I went to bed without turning off the hall light. I don't know if she noticed that either. I just knew I couldn't sleep in complete darkness that night. In the quiet of my room, I lay there thinking about all the things I could have said the years she missed the phone calls that never came. The worry I tucked behind grocery lists and late-night radio. But I didn't say any of them. Not because I'd forgotten. Because maybe for once I didn't need to. And in the early stillness of morning, I heard her moving in the kitchen. She was already sitting at the table when I walked into the kitchen. 2 mugs were out. She'd found the tea canister. Something about that small act made my chest ache more than it should have. I sat across from her, the morning light pale and slow to rise, same as us. Naomi spoke before I could ask anything. My boss turned me down the first time she said, "eyes on her hands." Said the team couldn't spare me. I let it go. Told myself it was just timing. I nodded, once kept quiet. The second time, they acted like I was asking to retire. I had to fight just to make them read the application. She ran a finger along the rim of her mug. "I started pushing harder last spring. After your fall." I looked up, startled. "I didn't tell you about that." "You didn't have to," she said. "Cousin Marcy posted something. Just a line. Aunt Clarice gave us a scare and a photo of you in a wrist brace." She finally met my eyes. "You smiled in the picture like always, but I saw how pale you looked. and it hit me that I might be missing the end of something just because I thought I had time. I didn't answer right away. I remembered that fall, slipped on the back steps after a rain. Stupid small thing. The worst part wasn't the pain, it was how long it took me to get up. Naomi's voice softened. I thought if I could just make the job work, if I could come back with something real to offer, it would mean more than just showing up for a weekend or calling during commercials. Her shoulders dropped. But I was wrong. It's not the same. Still, I said nothing. I didn't need to. Her being here now, without an excuse, without a timeline, was more than she'd ever brought before. We finished our tea in silence. Not cold, just quiet. And then, as if she remembered something important, Naomi stood and asked if I still kept the photo boxes in the hall closet. The box was heavier than I remembered. I slid it from the hall closet, brushing off a thin layer of dust before carrying it to the living room. Naomi followed quietly, almost cautiously, as if afraid she might disturb something fragile. I set it on the coffee table and lifted the lid. The familiar mix of old paper-dried pine needles and time rose up. Inside were letters, birthday cards, a few of her school drawings, and an ornament she made in 3rd grade, a lopsided little house painted gold, the top loop long broken off. Naomi sat beside me, though not too close. We didn't talk as we sifted through the memories. Some things we both remembered. Others we didn't say anything about at all. She picked up a photograph, Gerald standing in front of the fireplace, one hand resting on the mantel, the other holding a mug. Naomi was in the corner of the frame, laughing about something I no longer recalled. Gerald had been mid-sentence when I snapped it. Naomi stared at it longer than anything else. I used to think work mattered more than traditions, she murmured. Deadlines, meetings, all that noise. It felt important at the time. I didn't respond. Words weren't the right shape for this moment. Instead, I reached into the box and took out the uneven gold house ornament. The paint had chipped at the edges and the hook was gone, but it still fit in my palm, the way it used to when she proudly showed it off all those years ago. I walked to the tree, slid one of the branches through the gap in the roof, and let it sway there, crooked and imperfect. When I turned back, Naomi was watching me. Her eyes weren't full, but they were close. I didn't think you kept that, she said. I kept all of it, I answered. She placed the photograph of Gerald on the table, gently, as if afraid it might break. She took a breath like she wanted to say something more. But instead she asked if we still had the stew recipe her father loved. We found the recipe in the back of a drawer, scribbled in Gerald's handwriting on a yellowed index card. The ink had faded in places, and Naomi traced the edge of the card with her fingertip like it was something holy. While the stew simmered, we sat at the kitchen table. The smell brought back too much Sunday night's chilly dinners, Gerald humming while chopping carrots. Naomi didn't say anything at first, just stirred her tea and stared at the stove. Then she spoke. Voice even. The transfer wasn't clean, she said. They didn't just say yes and hand it over. I looked at her, waiting. I lost my team. The title. The raise I'd been chasing got pushed back at least 2 years. They moved me to a smaller project group, lateral shift, technically. But everyone knows what it means. She didn't sound angry, just tired. I chose Portland. She continued, not because it's easier, but because I couldn't stand another year being a voice on the phone while you sat here alone. I opened my mouth, but she stopped me gently with a glance. I didn't tell you earlier because I didn't want it to sound like a favor. Or worse, like I expected gratitude. I sat back, absorbing it all. The cost of proximity. The unspoken weight she'd carried into my kitchen. I always thought I had time, she added softer now. Time to fix it. Time to be better. The stew began to bubble over. She rose quickly and turned the heat down, busying herself with the ladle. I stayed seated, watching her move. Her back was straighter than it used to be, more guarded. I didn't want you to think I came back just to be noble, she said without turning around. I rose, walked to the counter, and handed her the bowl she'd forgotten. "You came back," I said. "That's enough." She looked down, then nodded once. We ate at the table, elbows close, but not touching. And when dinner was done, she asked if I still kept the old stockings in the drawer beneath the bookshelves. She found it right away. The drawer beneath the bookshelf stuck a little always had, but Naomi tugged it free like she still knew its rhythm. Inside, tucked between some old cards and a string of tangled lights, was the red stocking with her name stitched in crooked white thread. She held it up, letting it fall open. The heel was worn thin, the cuff a little stretched. Still intact, though. Still hers. "I didn't think you kept this," she said. I didn't answer immediately. I just pulled out a chair and sat down. "I never put it away," I said, finally. "Not once." She looked at me. "After that first year, I stopped hanging it on the fireplace. But I moved it to the bookshelf, to the guest room door, once even over the hallway mirror. I couldn't pretend like it didn't matter. So I just kept it somewhere I could see." Naomi blinked quickly, then held the stocking against her chest. Her shoulders trembled just slightly. "I thought you gave up on me." I reached across the table, placing my hand over hers. "I just needed you to remember where home was." Her grip tightened. She didn't sob, didn't collapse into me like a child. She just cried quietly, like someone who had waited too long to feel safe again. We sat like that for a long time. No explanations, no apologies. Just the silence that comes when something heavy is finally laid down. After a while, she rose and walked to the fireplace. It wasn't lit, but she hung the stocking anyway, threading the loop over the old brass hook that Gerald installed years ago. It still fit. A little snug, but it held. Then she turned to me and said, "I'd like to help put up the tree, if you still have it." I nodded, standing slowly. My knees ached more than they used to, but my hands didn't shake when I reached for the attic key hanging by the back door. We didn't rush. Some things are worth doing slowly. And as we climbed the stairs together side by side, I realized we hadn't moved in step like that in years. We didn't do much the next day, just enough. I pulled out the old Dutch oven Gerald loved and started peeling carrots while Naomi chopped the onions. She wasn't quick with a knife, but she watched closely, taking small notes in the quiet way she always did as a child. "This is the stew," she asked, stirring slowly. "The one Dad used to beg for every January." I nodded. "Though he always added more salt than I liked." She smiled, that small sideways one she used to give me when she was about to ask for something. But she didn't ask for anything this time. Just handed me the bay leaf and moved on. We didn't fuss over the tree. No garland, no ornaments this year, except one. The lopsided gold ornament she made in 3rd grade still hung from the branch we'd chosen the night before. A string of soft yellow lights draped across the middle like we got tired halfway through and decided it was enough. And it was. The stew simmered, filling the house with something I hadn't realized I'd missed. Not the scent of dinner, but the scent of together. We ate at the kitchen table, not the dining room. No need for formal chairs or folded napkins. Just bowls, warm bread, and quiet conversation. Naomi asked about small things. How I kept the garden alive. Whether the neighbor's boy still helped shovel the snow. She didn't press. Neither did I. At one point, I laughed. Really laughed at a silly joke she made about her cooking. It startled me how easy it felt. No guilt behind it, no weight. Just the sound of something old returning. When I looked over, Naomi was watching me. Not in pity, not like a stranger. Just a daughter seeing her mother as she was. And maybe for the first time in a long while, as someone she wanted to know again. Later, after the dishes were done and the fire had burned low, she stood by the window, holding her mug with both hands. "I found a listing for a rental," she said quietly. 10 minutes from here. The morning after Christmas, I placed 2 mugs by the sink. Not out of habit, not out of longing, but because Naomi would be back tomorrow and I didn't want to forget that simple fact she was coming back. She had an appointment to view a rental just off the highway, tucked near the post office. Small place, she said. Nothing fancy, but it had light in the kitchen and a big enough closet for her work clothes. 10 minutes from here, closer than I ever let myself imagine. She didn't say she was moving in, and I didn't ask her to. That's not what this was. But the space between us had changed. The silence no longer felt like a wall. It was something we could step through if we both stayed gentle with it. Naomi lingered longer after breakfast. She folded the blanket on the couch without being asked, rinsed her mug, checked the weather. She didn't rush to leave, and I didn't pretend I had somewhere to be. Before she went upstairs to pack her things, she reached for the stocking on the mantel. I watched as she lifted it carefully, fingers smoothing the curve of her name. Then instead of folding it away, she hung it back in its spot, straightening the brass hook as she had when she was 12. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. The room shifted in the smallest of ways. It felt like December again. Not the kind filled with noise and glitter, but the kind that holds warmth in quiet corners. A house that was waiting and had finally been noticed. That evening, after she left, I kept the porch light on not out of habit, but because now it meant something different. I washed the dishes, slowly dried her mug, and placed it back on the counter, next to mine, not to collect dust, but because it would be used again soon. And when I turned off the kitchen light, I stood for a moment in the doorway, letting the stillness settle around me. Not empty, but full of something I hadn't named in years.